Here's the agenda. We're going to do a quick introduction to SVG. And then we'll have a look at SVG in Power BI and how it works. And we'll do a little bit of a look at SVG in Power Apps and how that compares to doing it in Power BI, and how actually it's the same tricks. It's the same things you can do in SVG. And once you've managed to get it to work in one area, actually any place where you can use SVG, we can use some of the same tricks. With regards to questions, I will do the odd pauses and ask if there are any questions, because while I'm showing, I can't keep track of chat as well, so I will do a pause and ask, and then I'll leave some time at the end as well for more questions. So, SVG, what is it? It's a language very similar to HTML. It's part of the web, being able to draw on the web. It allows you to, so it's scalar vector graphics, which means it doesn't matter how much you stretch it, it stays the same. It gives the same nice picture. And there's lots of different ways to learn it. Oh my goodness, I have too many windows. Let's go to that one there. So we'll come back to Power Apps in a little while. But if I go to one way to learn it is to go and look for W3 Schools SVG. And they will let you go there. They will give you examples of how SVG works. So here's quite a good simple example. We've got an SVG here at the top, an opening tag and a closing tag, and in it, it's drawing a circle. Okay, so the CX and the CY are the dimensions of that circle. It's got a green outside and it's been filled with yellow. And one of the advantages of the W3 Schools, plus plenty of other sites, by the way, is there's a try it yourself. So we can come into here and we can have a look and we can go, well, actually, do you know what? We really don't like that yellow. So I want to make it blue. Press the run button and it will run it. Okay. And I can turn around. So we can change the colors. We can say, well, do you know what? We want it to have a radius of only 10. Oops, 10. And we can run it. And there we go. There's a size up here, so if I put the radius to be too big, so let's go for it being 60 and run it, you'll see the circle is drawn, but the box is clipped to that 100 by 100. So there are lots of tricks being able to draw things off the edge of the picture, etc. So there's lots of things you can do. While we're on sources of some good sources out there, I'm just hoping he's in my, it's not going to be in my search, is it? What I will do is I will take you to my blog, which has got the log on it. So if I go down to my hat full of data and we do a quick search for SVG, see there's lots and lots of blog posts here regarding SVG. I did a whole series on the Power BI ones, so I'm just going to pick one of those for a second just to take you to the first post, which will give me, rather than you guys having to write down links, it'll show you where you can find in here. So here I am giving examples of how to draw a red circle, etc. And then here's W3 Schools, and then Jacob Jenkov has got a really good tutorial that will take you through how to draw, and he does some nice videos, and there's all sorts of the different elements that are in there, and that's where I went and learned an awful lot of the SVG stuff. So we've managed to work out how to draw a circle. We've worked out there's a circle there. Okay, so I'm just going to copy that piece of code there, and let's step into Power BI. Too many windows yet again. So here we are in Power BI. I've got a really simple, I've forgotten to do one thing, my apologies. I'm just going to load a theme that I use for demos, which gives us some bigger text. And what we're going to do is we're going to put in a really simple little table. Of from my results, I've got some names and I've got some scores. Okay. And we're going to put some graphics next to them. So we're going to put some little icons next to them as well. And under my report, so let's give them this is a score from a test, let's say. Okay, so that table is not going to move for me, is it? The demo gods are already picking on me. So we're going to add in a very simple measure. Okay, and we're going to go, so let's go with a new measure. Thinking about it. So into that measure, we're going to do a, let's call it red dot. So we're going to go equals. Now we're going to set up a whole set of variables to start this off. And I have a little set of, I have two variables which I put at the top just to make life easy. Okay, so you can't just put in straight SVG into in as an image. You have to prefix it with this part here that says it's going to be a data image. Okay, so all of my measures that are do with SVG start with these two lines. So this top part here is telling Power BI it's going to be an SVG. It's an XML format. XML is the tags that we're using. And then in here, it's telling you what the schema for SVG is. And it's also giving you the size it's going to be. So the view box. So that means the view box goes from 0 in the top left-hand corner down to 100, 100. Now, it's not really a size. It's kind of these are the dimensions. You can resize it to be different sizes as you want to go. So let's put in another var that's going to be our dot. And we're just going to paste, well, I'm going to put double quotes, and I'm going to paste what I got. That's not what I wanted. I've done too many copies. My apologies. I'm going to go back onto that W3 School site. I should have used my clipboard history, but never mind. And now the trick here is I normally would take, if I'm doing this on long ones, I do this via an editor because you can't embed double quotes. Well, you can get away with swapping all your double quotes to be single quotes so that actually you end up with in the SVG all the quotes can be swapped out. My future examples, I've sorted it out a lot better. Okay, so we've got our string there is behaving. So that gives me my parts. So now I can just do a return. And we're going to return SVG start ampersand dot ampersand SVG end. Okay, and so that gives me, so that's giving me my dot. I did say it was going to be red dot, so let's, you know what, let's put in red as my, I'll show you a simpler version in a moment, but there we are, it's red across. So if I now make sure that's happy with that. The other part is your, whilst you've got your measure selected, data category, you should categorize it as an image URL, because that's what it is. And then into my table here, I'm just going to add in that red dot. It was meant to be inside report measures. Never mind, we'll fix that in a moment. So there we are. I've got my red dots appearing next to them. Okay. Now that works, but it's they're all the same, so it's not that much use. if you wanted to put in a logo or something like that, I suppose it would work. But this time, let's go for something that will be different each time. So let's go for a Kpi indicator. Okay, so we're going to insert another new measure. And we're gonna put this in as my score KPI. Now, what I have done is, previous to this, is I have, so let's put in the top part in there that we had before, our SVG essentials. So I'm just going to copy and paste those in. Okay. Then I say, well, actually, do you know what? I would like a up arrow in green, and I'd like a down arrow in red. Okay, so we're going to go with that. That's giving me my two arrows that are there. I'm just going to put in a return into here just to make sure it doesn't sulk on me, because I'm just going to step aside and I'm just going to add in one more measure. So I'm just going to put that in for a sec. We'll come back and finish that in a second, but I want to put in a target against these ones here. So I don't want to hard code it, but I actually want to put a target in of 50. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to do another new measure. Let's spell target right. Target equals 0.5. So we're going to do it if it is equal or greater than the target, it gets a green arrow. Otherwise, it gets a red arrow. So if I go back, I'm really not putting my measures anywhere in the right places, but never mind. I'm sure all you guys are very good at doing that. I always forget until I have to tidy up afterwards. So we're going to put in a variable here called arrow. And we're going to do if, and the logical test. So what we're going to do is we're going to put in an average so that we could combine multiple ones here. So if the average score is greater than or equal to the target, then we're going to have an up arrow. Otherwise, we're going to have a down arrow. So I've built up the logic so that you can see what's appearing in here, and then our return is going to be our SVG start ampersand arrow ampersand SVG end. Let's make it into a image URL. And let's add it to our table. And there you are, you get your up and down arrows. If you changed your score, obviously different ones would show up as green and red. And the total down the bottom here, it does try to put them in. Okay, so you can decide whether actually that makes it's an up arrow overall, because the average of everybody is above 50. So that's all well and good. And if you're willing to sit down and spend the time working out this SVG here and a path, okay, so the path of SVGs is writing out the line. So that is move to point 1090, draw a line to point 5010, draw another line to 9090, and then Z is close the image. So that draws you your little triangle, and that one draws you your other triangle. That's all well and good, but actually I want to have more complicated pictures. So there are lots and lots of SVG libraries online, but there are also some quite cute pictures provided by Microsoft. So if we switch to my blank presentation here. Onto my slide, if you look up on the top here, we've got icons. And all of these icons, everything is taking forever to load today. If we load these icons, come on. And let's go for animals. And let's go for, now I have to be a little bit careful here because some of the multi-part ones will misbehave in some situations. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for, I did have a cute duck earlier. I can't find it now. So, do you know what? Let's search for duck. That's the best way to do it. There we go. There's a duck. So there's my duck. If I do a right click on that and I do save as picture. Oh, look, I've saved it before. I can save it over there, and there is my duck. Yeah, let's replace it. Let's prove that actually this is what it is. And if I then go and look, there is my duck. And if I do a right click on that and I open it with, let's go for Studio Code. Of course, that's opened it in a window that wasn't in on the right screen. So let me just move that a second. It's also my cheat window. So let me just bring that into this screen for a second. Okay. So the SVG gives me in here it gives me a header, but it gives me 3 parts basically. And if I do a bit of formatting in here, yes, there probably is a quick way to do it in SVG code. I don't know it well enough. But you'll see that there's the top of the SVG, there's the bottom of the SVG there, and there's a path. So one of the things I quite often do is if I want to complicated things, that path is highly complicated and will just be long. Okay, and that's, believe it or not, that's one of the short ones. So if I just copy that, and let's go back into Power BI. So rather than put that in, try and embed it inside another measure, what we're going to do is we are going to go for, let's hide that one for a second, and let's go for the new measures. Sorry, I'm still getting used to where buttons are on these new ribbons. I like the new ribbons, but the buttons keep hiding. While it's loading, is there any questions? Or are we okay?
Looks everybody's okay, Laura.
Cool, cool. So what we're going to put into here is we are going to put in my duck SVG equals, and this isn't the whole of the SVG, this is just going to be the path. And so the bit we need to fix is only a couple of double quotes, just change them into single quotes and put some double quotes on the end. So there we are. We could have, now for one of my clients, we actually had a table full of all the different SVGs they wanted to use, and that's how we loaded it all up, so that we had one central source for the SVGs for their logos that they needed to use. So that gives me an SVG one. So what we're going to do is we're just going to put ducks down here for a second, and then we're going to have a look at ducks filled up to match the scores. And then we're going to, so I'm just trying to make it, yeah, then we'll move across to show how it works exactly the same in Power Apps. So let's do a new measure. Nope, we're not doing a new measure. Go on, give me a new measure, Power BI Playball. It'll now give me 2. Right. So let's call this the duck KPI. And we're going to do, it's going to be remarkably similar. So what I'm actually going to do is move my cheat window back up into my second screen, because that's where I'm copying code from. But all this code is on my blog site, so it's nothing that I'm so the SVG essentials and things like that, they're all available on my blog site. So there we go, we've got our essentials there. Okay, and so so we're going to do a really simple return just to begin with. It's going to be our that's bizarre, it's not come up with what I expected it to come up with. SVG, there we go, start. And I can then bring in my duck SVG measure, SVG end, and to our table here we can add our duck KPI. It's not yet finished. See, it came through as text, and that's because I forgot to change the data category to be a image URL. And there we are, we get our duck. Okay, so that was deliberate, honest. We've got our little ducks in there. Now what I want to do this time is I want to be able to put in a duck that's a pale grey duck, so pale grey background, and then filled up how much it is compared to the score, right? I'm going to fill from the left to the right because it's the easier one to do. You can do it from the bottom to the top, but it's a little bit more complicated to calculate. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by just giving us a coloured version of the ducks. So I'm going to put into here my coloured ducks comment. So let's have a grey duck. And this is going to equal, so you can wrap another tag around your path or any section of SVG or multiple paths even. So, and it's called, it's a G tag, short for group. And so we can put in things into here. So I can put into here that we are going to have I'm going to put it in as, so there's multiple ways to do this one. We did fills earlier. You can put in a style if you know your CSS. So we can put into here that my style is going to be fill grey. Yes, this could be a hex color as well. It would work just as well. Let's behave and put the semicolon in and do that. And then we're going to bring in ampersand in our duck. It's not 100% sure today, is it? I haven't put an end quote in. That's what the problem is. There we go. So then I can bring in my duck, and then I need to close that G tag. Okay, so you have to brush up if you haven't done HTML and or XML kind of style languages before. It's a skill worth learning if you're going to do this. So if I go for that and then take out down the bottom here on my return, let's put in my grey duck. Press return. And hey presto, all the ducks turn grey. So we're going to copy that line. Right, and we're going to copy that line, and we're going to put, let's go for a blue duck. Okay, and we're going to call this blue duck. Well, this is, and then into here, I'm going to put in an ampersand blue duck. And what that does is it draws a grey duck and it draws a blue duck on top. So you can't see the grey duck. Okay. So now what we want to be able to do is we want to do what's called a clip path. Now clip paths in SVG are not too horrific. What we're going to do is I'm going to just put it in as an extra part up here. So the clip path is what you do is you define the shape that you want to clip it to. In a comment. Those of you that don't put comments in your code, I really hope you have a long memory, because when I have to deal with code I haven't looked at for 6 months, I have to really work hard on this one. So I'm going to call this clip path. So this has multiple parts to it. It starts off with a def. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set them all to be 50 to begin with, because that's a nice easy one to go with. So you start off with defs, and then what we put inside there is a clip path. Now there's lots of information out there about how to do a clip path, but until you know the name to search in Google, it's one of those kind of things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a name, an ID, got to be single tags, Laura, and we're going to give it a score clip. Okay, so that's the beginning of my clip path, and then inside it we're going to draw a rectangle, and I am going to cheat a little bit and just copy. You don't need to watch me type and make all the mistakes I'm going to make. So I'm just going to copy and paste in. So what that's done is it's there's the defs and it closes. There's my clip path and it closes. Look, it's hey, I'm sure it never used to highlight them before. And there's my rectangle. Okay, my rectangle is 0 to 0, height 50, it's the same height as the thing, and width 50. So that's halfway across, because my SVG is size is 100 by 100, right? So that's done all that path. We then need to come in to our blue duck section here, and we put into the blue duck, we're going to put in the clip hyphen path. And yes, all of these are case sensitive, and those capital letters or lowercase letters will drive you nuts. I recommend cups of coffee or cups of tea. I'm British, I suppose it should be cups of tea, shouldn't it really? So we then put into there, so then there's a hash, and then it's the name of whatever you called it up in this ID. My score clip, and I'm going to press return. It doesn't like something in there. So what I am going to do is I'm going to remember to put in, so this bit I always forget is, so there's my score clip. I'm going to put in my clip path as part of what I return as well. I'm then going to work out what I've got wrong, because something's gone wrong. My apologies if I don't get this to work. I will switch over to my Blue Peter version, or my pre-saved version that's already set up. I cannot see what's wrong with that. Let's just quickly switch to this one. I'm hoping this one. Is that the one I was sort of? I've got two that are now very similar. Sorry. There we go. There's gonna be something I got wrong in the other version. So no, that looks like the one I've just typed. So there we are. I've got my clip path. It's now behaving. I've brought my ducks in. They're all at 50%. Okay. One of the problems, as I can illustrate here, is you need to put in a tooltip. If you're going to be using these things, you need to bring in some tooltips, because the tooltips on here just end up looking horrible. Either that, or you just need to turn tooltips off, because that's not a tooltip you should make any of your users suffer with. So, but what I want to do is this 50 in here. Okay, so what we're going to do up here is we're going to bring in a var clip width. And this is going to equal the average of the scores times 100. So that means my clip path here now. Let's separate that string there, put in some ampersands, and put in my clip width. And there you are. You've got your ducks at different points. So there you are, 30%. You need to be aware that your SVGs, because my SVG doesn't quite touch the edge, 10% looks very small. So you need to play around with some of your SVGs, and you see that 80% almost look, and 90% looks like 100% because the beak doesn't quite reach the end. So there are some tricks you might need to have to play with your SVGs. That's why we did, I handed it over to a graphics department and said, that's the image I want it as SVG. And they had the right tools to make sure it touched either side. Okay, right. Time is moving on. So there are lots of things you can do in there. Okay, so one of the other things, let me just see if I can switch across to the other one for a moment. That's my problem. It's going on my other screen. Multiple screens. You'd think I've got used to it by now. So what I'm just going to quickly show you is another one that I used. We'll add to this table a colored dial. So this gives you it's pretty small, but there are ways of sorting it out. This gives you a little dial that's showing the different percentages. Okay, and let me just show you the code that's behind there. Okay, we've got, so there's my SVG essentials. I've worked out I've gone and found the path for a little arch, and then I came up with colored arches. Okay, I then rotated those arches backwards. So here's my rotation that I've got for my arches, and it's you put all the colors on top, and then you rotate them backwards, and then I drew a line and I rotated that one. I've got a post that walks you all the way through that. We really don't have time for that one today, and then I put some text in. So SVG allows you to put in text. This is one way I've seen SVG used for putting in text, for you to allow you to put in text formatted in a particular way, turned sideways, all those kind of things inside Power BI. Code, text written at an angle, things like that, tricks that people want to be able to do that they can't do with standard visuals. So there's all the things that are in there. They're all the things that are inside. Lots of different tricks you can do. Animating SVG does work on web pages, but I found doesn't work quite so well inside Power BI unless you are being very, very careful. If any of you get it to work and you have some really good examples, please do shout and scream about it out in the community, because I'd love to see it. So going from, that's Power BI, okay, and I've done, and there's lots of things in there. Another use I found that of one of the guys that does it in one place I'm working, they've put it inside the chiclet slicer, so they've put some SVG in there. That works quite well. So let's switch over to Power Apps. So Power Apps, here we are, Power Apps. So we're going to go for a very simple little app. Okay. Really helps if I could spell. So how are we doing? Any questions out there? Anyone awake?
Oh yes, we're all amazed at what you're showing us, actually. Where can we find the SVG code for your color dial, please?
Okay, let me just go and show you that I have done the colored dial. Let's go for hatful of data again. So my hatful of data, the Power BI version of what we've done, if I go and go for my SVG search, oh, there's the little icons you've got in there as well. You can also do. So if we look here, SVG rotate to create a dial in Power BI. So if we look down here, here's my simple dial. So there's talking about drawing the arch. So that's a really simple, just talk you through drawing an arch. And then we put a line on it, and I rotate that line to put it in the right place. That SVG rotates there in the code. We then go through, I decided putting the number underneath would be nice. So I did a thing about SVG text. There is a post all about text. Then I did the colors. So this is, I mean, I literally just copied and pasted this code to do today's example, and just tweaked score to be average score. And if we look down here, there is the complete code. If there's ones out there that people can't work out how to do, please do reach out to me on Twitter, on LinkedIn, by whatever other means you can find me. Name's Laura Graham Brown. There's not many of us. And if you type SVG Laura Graham Brown, you'll definitely find me. So, did that answer the question?
Apparently so, yes.
Cool. Okay. So I'm just going to create a completely blank. I think I've already done this, haven't I? I just did that a minute ago. My apologies. So here we are inside a Power App. I'm gonna put on a. So we're going to start really simple. Okay, we're going to draw our duck again. So we're going to go for, on the insert, we're going to go to media, and we're going to go to image. So the image property of that is up here. Now, for our in the way that you build measures inside Power BI, you can do similar kinds of tricks inside Power Apps using Encode, and goes with the format of the first parameter is some JSON, and the second parameter is the return part of Power BI. I'm assuming because I'm sat in the Power BI stream, I've got more Power BI people here than I've got Power Apps people. And also I think Serge is on at the same time as me. So let's be honest, all the Power Apps people have gone there. So there's a slight difference here. We're gonna do our simple circle, and then we'll do our duck. That's right, I'm gonna do the simple circle first. So in our JSON here, we're going to split our SVG star into two parts. So let me just copy. Let's just copy and paste, because we haven't got time for me doing my normal typos. So it sets up three variables. Okay, so I've got image star, an SVG star, and SVG end. And what I'm also going to do is I'm just going to go, and we're going to go with exactly the same circle as we had before. So I'm just going to go to Power BI for a second and just steal it from here. That circle. So I'm going to call this my my dot. Oh, let's put in a comma, because that's what that JSON wants. And let's call it my dot. So there's my circle, and in this part here, which is just the same as a return, we're going to go with image start. And then what we're going to ampersand onto it. Now it can't cope with straight SVG. It gets really upset by the whole concept. So what you have to do is you have to encode your SVG. So this is from the SVG tag onwards. So in here, I'm going to put in my SVG start. And this is the difference. This is the only difference really between Power BI and Power Apps. That's not what I wanted. I want dot next, don't I? So if I go for my dot, and then I'm going to go for my SVG end. And if I press return, there you are. I've got my red. Now here it's quite easy to show that I can resize that circle and it stays a really nice clean circle, whatever size your screen is. Oh, sorry. I am just going to divert back to Power BI just for a second because there's one thing I forgot to mention talking about sizes. It's kind of related. Inside your table here, the image sizes, okay? I'm pretty certain it's called image, the thing that I'm looking for. I haven't changed this. There we go. Image height. I always look for size and it's never there. So that image height allows you to make your images bigger or make your images smaller. Okay, my apologies, I didn't mention that earlier. But that's all the images in the table. So if you're using these things here, in my posts, I also, if you're using the icons that conditionally formatted icons, you can have SVG coming in for those as well. I've done a post on that. But I really haven't got time because I'm aware it's 3 o'clock already. I've got till 3:15, haven't I?
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you. So on my width here, so we've done our build up and we've got our section here. So what I want to do on this one, okay, is I want to prove that we can do the duck. Now, what you can't do inside a width is I can't refer. So if I set up dot, I can't then refer to dot again. Okay, so I can't then do a comma, a calculation here based off dot. So in order to make this easy, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back up to app and we're going to set up a variable. I'm setting it as a global variable. There are ways of doing it as a local variable as well, but we're going to put into here, we're going to put in set duck SVG, and then we put in a comma, and then into there is going to be the string. So we are just going to switch across to me to go and find my duck SVG. So I'm literally just copying the path I had before, and I'm putting it in there, and we'll just do the little tweaks of the double quotes into single quotes. Okay, so that's going to set up my variable, and if I click the 3 dots, I'm going to run it. And I can just confirm that's working by going to view and view my variables, and there you go. There is the path, and it will show you all the parts that are in there. So let's change this to not use dot. Let's just do a really simple version here. And look, there we are. Duck SVG comes up. And there we are. We've got our duck. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert a slider. So we're going to go for input. And why aren't these in alphabetical order? Can someone sort it out, please? I panicked earlier because I couldn't find the slider. So there's my slider. My slider does 0 to 100 over here on the right hand side. It can show it to me. So what I want is my blue line to go left and right based off where I put that slider. So we're going to go with putting in a definition into here. Right. So I'm going to take out my dot there. And let's put in my defs. Okay, and if you remember this was the clip path we had earlier. So what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to nick code. Oops. So what we're going to put into and then what we're going to do is we are going to come up with our two different colors of our ducks. So let's have our grey duck, and this is going to be. So inside our grey duck is we're going to put in our G. Our fill is going to be grey. Well, let's prove that we can do it in numbers. I'm going to get these numbers wrong. I can see it coming. Pretty certain that gives me grey. And then we can put in our duck SVG. And then we need to close our group. And into here, we're going to put in our grey duck. Let's just check that's working before I move on to putting in multiple coloured ducks. There we are, we've got a pale grey duck. So, let's put in our blue duck. Actually, not blue duck. Let's go with a pink duck. Why not? I'm pink wrong. Let's make it a red duck. I can see me getting the colouring wrong for red. So this number here is red, green, blue. So let's go for lots of red, no green, no blue. Forgot to put it in. Now these get layered on top of each other. So if I put the red duck before the grey duck, the grey would end up on top. Okay, so red duck. And there's my red duck. So now what we want to do is, there's my defs. So I need to put that into there. So we put into our duck here, our clip path equals, and it's a single quote. Sorry, move my cursor. So the URL is, and we called it score clip. I forgot to put the hash on the front. The hash is because it's an ID. That should work. Didn't work. Haven't put the defs in. So need to put in the defs. And I mean, you could build this all up as one great big string. I do not recommend it, because actually being able to use with, for anybody that's a parrot builder and they don't understand with, please go and look at Brian Dang. He who does lots and lots of stuff on with. There are various other people. If they don't, or Shane Young probably does some as well. So there we are. There's our duck. It's at 50, but at the minute that slider isn't working to change this. So what we're going to do is we're just going to change this so that 50 there. I'm going to take that out, do exactly the same trick as we did in the other one. And we're going to put into there. My slider is still called slider 1 because I haven't renamed things. slider 1 and dot value. So I can press play, I can pick up my slider here, and there you are. We can fill up and we can change our duck. Now, this is the tip of an iceberg. The tricks you can do with SVG are phenomenal. There are some brilliant games out there written in SVG that do all sorts of things inside Power Apps. So this is the tip of the iceberg. Last Christmas, I madly did 12 Days of Christmas, which every day I built a component out of SVG. So we went from a Christmas tree to decorating it with some baubles, to changing the colours of those baubles, to doing some presents and some tags, and then do some star ratings and some other things that I did. We did, and also the gauge. You'll recognise an awful lot of them have come straight from my Power BI posts. So those are all out there, and I have done a post SVG in Power BI. So let's just do it back for a second. Another one there. There we go. My 12 days of components. So I have 12 videos on my YouTube channel, which talk you through all the ways of creating a component and how to do this. But here is all of the SVG code for all of them. If you're converting it to Power BI, you would just not use the encode. Okay. I promise I'm not going to do anything more complicated. But if anybody's up for doing some more complicated stuff, please reach out to me and let's sort out a session somewhere that we can do some more things. So let's prove I've actually got some more slides. Hey, I said demo. See, I always forget that slide. It's just text. It really is just text. Okay, and it's just edited. So and it's been around. SVG has been around for a long time. It was one of the first ways to do some nice graphical things on web pages. So there are lots of resources. Break it down. W3 School, Jenkov, and lots of other people, and hatfulofdata.blog. If I don't answer the questions and you can't find the answers, please reach out and ask me. I'll either go and find you the resources, or I'll create the resources to help. Any questions? I've only left 5 minutes. My apologies.
Yes, there is one question, which is what are the advantages or disadvantages of using SVG instead of conditional formatting with icons, except that you can act on the percentage of color of the image? Okay. The point at which I started doing SVG, we didn't have icons. Okay. So if you're just looking for something really simple and really easy, I would go with icons every time. Okay, so if you're just looking for your red, amber, green icons, so those arrows that I showed earlier, if all you want is that, then go with the icons. They are brilliant. If you want it so that actually it's a bit bigger, you can control how it's looking, all those kind of things, or you're wanting to bring in some other tricks that SVG can offer you, such as the dials and all those tricks that haven't quite yet appeared in Power BI, then SVG. The advantage of using formatted icons is they are supported. They're not relying on extra code, and they're not going to cause you. You're not going to have to maintain them. You're not going to have to look after them if you need to go beyond it. So at the point at which I started with SVG, they weren't available, but so I would go with the icons if they work. If conditional formatting icons work for you, then great, use those. If you need something else, then I would go with a bit of SVG. Okay. Okay, we don't have any more questions. Okay. Well, thank you. I'm going to have to admit the fact that I have no idea what that French in the corner says, so I have no idea whether I meant to have removed it from the slide. No, it just means that you can meet in the cafe where it's set with other people, you know. Cool. Cool.
So
okay, my apologies for not knowing French. Okay,
and
guys.
we're asking people to give their feedback on the forum, which is one of the tabs of the channel. That's all.
Great. Thank you, guys. Thank you for coming to my session. I will put out tweets that give you links directly to my SVG stuff out on Twitter as soon as I've finished here.
Well, thanks a lot for your session, and really thanks for sharing these great tips with us. It's really helpful and really insightful. Thanks again.
Thank you.